First of all, congrats to Duke. They're an outstanding team, very talented. They have a really good mix of older guys, what's considered old in college basketball today, and some really, really talented freshmen. And when they shoot the ball like this, they're going to be hard to beat. Today's game and their last game, they've made a total of 26 threes. And then they've done it in a very efficient manner. And so, again, I thought we were really excited for the game. Our guys were. I mean, really, really excited. And I thought that led early to us doing some things that weren't in character with what we've worked on the past few days, and even earlier in shoot around of how we wanted to attack. Sometimes you can be too excited, too juiced up. I thought as we got into the game, especially the second half, offensively we were better, but we never were able to get a grasp on the game defensively. And a big credit to them because they made like every shot. And so, again, congrats to them. This is the first, I think, ACC regular season title they've won since 2010. I think they have a chance to win it outright on Saturday, and so good luck to them.
Jeff, in those opening minutes, or what specifically was in character for?
Well, I would say in character is probably not the right thing. That's probably not the right thing to say because I don't know what the character is. But we just didn't execute what we wanted to execute. That's probably the better way to say it. You know, we had something that we wanted to run at the beginning of the game. We've worked on it for a couple of days, and then we got out there, and first time we get the basketball, we never really got into it. You know, defensively, we're supposed to switch at times and early, and we switched, but then we left the guy wide open. It was like we didn't communicate the switch. And so it was just plays like that, and they made us pay for it every time.
Did you see a lot of defensive breakdowns, or did you feel like it was just more really talented players making shots?
I thought it was a little bit of both. I thought it was a mix of both. At times we did have some breakdowns, and when you're talented like that, they make you pay. But then they're very talented, and they just made some really big-time individual one-on-one plays.
Jeff, what were your emotions pregame? Coach K mentioned he was emotional about that.
You know, it was weird, man. It was very strange because as I got here tonight, and when we went in and did the pregame talk with our guys, and I went back to the little room where I sat, I texted my wife and I said, for some reason, I just got really emotional. And I didn't really understand it. And obviously when I came out and saw him and then seeing the video and you know, the presentation to him, I mean, it was very, very emotional. Like it's weird to think that the guy that I've known as the Duke coach basically my whole life, is the only coach that I've known at Duke, that this would be the last time that I would be on the floor with him. You know, as a player, coach, coaching against him, and it was a little bit surreal. So it was emotional.
What's the significance of the fist to you?
Well, it means a lot. I believed in it since I was 17 years old, and that's what I told him when I gave it to him. I committed to Duke as a junior, and I was 17, and I believe in every word of it. I use it in my home. It means a lot to me. I think there are words certainly that have helped make that program. I think it's the premier program in all of college basketball. But more importantly, I think it's helped all of us that have worn that jersey. I think it's helped us become better men. And so that's what it means to me.
How heavy was that thing?
It wasn't as heavy as I thought it was, but it was sort of heavy.
So the message goes beyond basketball?
Message goes beyond basketball.
Mm-hmm.
It goes beyond basketball. And again, when I played there, I learned about it. It's something that, you know, we talked about as players, you know, upholding it, upholding those words, upholding the tenets of the program, playing for the guys before us, the guys that, you know, made the program what it is. There was a lot of pride. My 4 years there weren't easy. You know, we went through some crap. You know, I was on maybe the worst team ever at Duke. We played for a national championship my freshman year. My second year, we were 2-14 in the conference. And my junior year, we were 8-8 in the league, made the tournament, got beat in the first round. And so we had to go through a lot. And overcoming that, getting stuff said about you at 18, 19, 20 years old, stuff written about you, getting booed, which I did as a senior, it was difficult, but I'm so grateful for it because I wouldn't have been able to go through the things that I've had to deal with in my life once I left Duke if I didn't have those experiences and know that I can be strong in those situations. And the other thing that it did is that it formed some incredible bonds with teammates. And I don't think it's ironic that if I say my best friends, they're guys that I played with there. And they're guys that I fought with and we overcame stuff. And so as a player, for me, the proudest thing as a player, when I wore that jersey is that we won the regular season my senior year, even more so than the Final Four my freshman year. And I was a starter. The Final Four was in Charlotte. It was home for me. But what we were able to overcome and to do it together and to win the regular season my senior year is the thing that I was most proud about because of what we had to fight through.
Jeff, he talked about how close he was with your father, and what did he mean to you, not just you as a coach or a mentor in the game, but also just personally in your relationship all away from the game?
Yeah, one of the reasons I chose Duke is that he reminded me of my dad. I grew up a Carolina fan, and I would tell my parents every day when I was little that I'm going to Carolina to play for Coach Smith. And Carolina was the first ACC school to offer me that I remember. Duke offered shortly after, and it was after my 10th grade year. I went up there at some point, I think it was like in April, late April, for an unofficial visit. And I spent probably an hour with Coach. And it was during that conversation, that hour, when we left, I knew that's the guy I want to play for because he reminded me of my dad. And how he reminded me of him, I think they both have a military background, but it was brutally honest. That's what it was. Like if anyone knew my dad, you never had to guess where you stood. And that's the way Coach was. He didn't promise anything except for a fair opportunity and I'm gonna coach you hard and I'm gonna teach you and all these things. And it just reminded me so much of him. And so that relationship, look, when I was 17, if you would have told me in my 40s, my coach would be my friend, I would have thought you were out of your mind. Because it was at times rocky. Being his point guard is difficult. There's a lot that's demanded. And there were a lot of things that he said in the moment at times that I didn't want to hear, that was very hard to hear, but it was necessary. And, he's been there with me through everything, good, bad, tough times. When I think of since I left there, all the things that I've been through, he's been the guy he's been one of the people that's been there for me. So the relationship means the world to me.
You've told us before about stories from your freshman year where he gave y'all a rough speech and left the bus. And,
Rough speech.
Yeah, saying it nicely. But he's had this moment. He talked about it because I asked him about that. He was like, Jeff came up in a different era when you could talk a different way. But yeah. I guess what is you gleaned from that. But what things have you kind of learned from him, and has there been stuff that you helped him in reciprocating? It's like, hey, this is the way that the game is going.
No, I don't think. I think one of the things that I think the biggest thing that's made him great throughout, and this is a man that's been great in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2000, and now in 2020. Mm-hmm. I think the thing that's made him great is his ability and willingness to adapt. I think he's really, really smart. I actually think he's brilliant. And I think he's smart at reading and seeing people and understanding that he has to change. It doesn't mean that the standards change, but the approach with a relationship, it is different. Like the way that he could talk to me and my teammates, you cannot do that anymore. Some of the things that he did, some of the, the way he taught, the way he did a lesson, you have to be careful with that stuff now. And I think, the fact that he can understand that, he can see that, and he's been able to change and adapt. I don't think anyone has done that. I think he's just been observant and been willing to change.
Do you coach your team like he coached you?
You can't. No. I wouldn't have a job. I wouldn't. I don't think any coach now back in the 90s can do, say, or, whatever. I don't think. We're in a very, very different time. And so, to a certain extent now, like, you have to be really careful. You have to be really careful. I mean, there was a coach, I'm watching Wisconsin right now, and I'm reminded, like, they had somebody recording in the locker room. Players recording the coach. And took it and they got to the media. So it's a very different time now, man. So you have to be, I try to have some of the same standards and the things that I taught, but like the approach is very different.
Jeff, I know what you said to your guys after the game tonight, but I mean, after a difficult loss like this with the season winding down, I mean, when you talk to your guys, like, what in them do you try to appeal to? Is it pride, competitiveness?
After a game, I don't say much because I don't want to say anything with emotion. I learned that when I was a younger coach. After a game, I would get these long talks and I was emotional because you're emotional. Like you're in competition. And there were times when I would get on them and I'd go back and watch the tape and, gosh, we didn't play that. We didn't do this. Or I would praise them and I go back and like, we didn't play well. Like we didn't. And so after a game, I'm very brief. And we'll get back to, when we get back together, that's when we'll talk about it. That's when we'll go through. When I've had a chance to watch it from a non-emotional, state. I'll get emotional when I watch it. I'll get angry. I'll, whatever. But I'm not speaking just out of pure emotion. So that's what I try to do.
Jeff, from what you saw tonight of Duke, do you think that's a team that deserves a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament?
Well, you have to earn a number 1 seed. I think if they can finish out the regular season and if they can, go to the, ACC tournament and make a run, then yeah, I think they are. I think they're as good. I think they're as good as anyone. I think they're as good as anyone I've seen. I haven't seen everyone, but there's talented and they're as good as anyone that I've seen. And if they shoot the basketball like they've done the last 2 games, then they can be very difficult to beat. I don't think, I know for me, this is my first time seeing them live. Like, you don't realize how big they are. And when they go to quote unquote small ball is Paolo at the 5 at 6'10", 255. But then they have the ability to switch everything. And then they can take you out of stuff and things like that. And they have a great leader in Wendell Moore, who's an older guy in the program and is all about winning. You know what I mean? And then a great mixture of really talented freshmen that understand. Like, one of the things that I was really impressed with Paolo and Keels, they made unbelievable plays, unbelievable shots, and never one time did they celebrate. It was just like business-like. This is what I do. Let me get back and play defense. And that was really impressive, especially for 2 young guys.
You had talked about their size and talent there, Jeff. I mean, how much does that factor into a slower start where they build a big lead? Like, it's one thing to scout them, watch them on film, be told what to do, but when you're actually out there, like, having to face that, I mean, how different is it, and how much do you think that factored into?
I just look. They're really good. They're really talented. I mean, they're really good, and so that all of that factors into it. If you play someone that's really good, then you can get off to a slow start if you're not making shots, if you're turning the basketball over. I mean, they're really good. They're very talented, and they seem to be on a mission together. Like, it doesn't seem like any individual stuff. They're all on a mission. Coach always talks about moments, and having moments. And I think they understand this is a moment. This year is a moment for them, and they want to capitalize and send the guy off with something special.
What did you see from John and how this game progressed?
Yeah, it was interesting because early in the game, I felt like that he wasn't aggressive. It was almost like he was anticipating a double. And one of the things we told him at halftime is, they're not doubling you. Just go. Go right through them. Like, go. Don't hesitate. And I thought he did a much better job of that in the second half, of being aggressive and not waiting, just making quick moves. And so I was really pleased with that.